Welcome back, everyone. This will be our last lesson of the week as we conclude things talking about the Holocaust. As we begin next week, we will tie things up and then we will move forward. But want to talk now about the camps that these prisoners are going to be going to. Early on, they were going to be strictly labor camps. The goal was to now put Jews to work in such a way that they were going to feel the full weight of their imprisonment. They were given such difficult circumstances in terms of housing, in terms of food, given scraps to live on, that the goal, in essence, was to now perhaps drive them to the point of death. Even if the food or lack thereof didn't kill them, perhaps the work would. They would not be too broken up if people died under their imprisonment. However, as time goes on, it becomes clear this isn't doing the work of elimination fast enough. This isn't something that is going to be working with enough speed. And so, therefore, Hitler says we need to ratchet things up with greater urgency. This is not going to be quick enough. We need to now create what we're going to call the final solution. Their goal here is to eliminate every single Jew from the face of the earth. This isn't going to be limited to certain pockets. Hitler hopes by the overwhelming force of the German army to not only take over every area, but also eliminate every Jew from the face of the earth, using what he calls the final solution, which is going to be the beginning of massacre in these camps. These specific camps are going to be death camps. Treblinka and Buchenwald are going to be some of them, and there's going to be work still happening there. There's going to be efforts made to crush the spirit of these individuals. We'll talk about a sign in just a bit that is going to communicate that. But as you look to, probably the most famous of the death camps is going to be Auschwitz. The horrors experienced here, and we'll talk briefly about some of them, are going to be unthinkable. If you've ever had an opportunity, and I hope you do even after all of this ends, to go to the Museum of Tolerance, there are still some living individuals that had the horrific opportunity, if you will, to experience those things firsthand. You can see the tattoos on their forearms, their prison numbers, and to hear their stories, it's just overwhelming. I hope that you guys, even this summer, take the opportunity to go up to LA Museum of Tolerance and to be able to sit and hear some of these people share from their life. It's something like you will never experience again. But I would encourage you to go even this summer, assuming that this is all wrapped up by then, just to be able to see that, because the reality is these people are beginning to die out. And as they die, even if their stories have been captured on video, it's not the same as being able to look them in the eye, see them face to face. I've had the chance to do that a couple times. I hope that you guys can too. As prisoners would roll into Auschwitz, they would be put through something called selection. Based on their gender and overall physical health, they would be told, you're going to go to this side or you're going to go to this side. Word had begun to leak back to those in certain areas that would be transporting prisoners to Auschwitz of what was happening once you arrived. Not only that, but you can imagine that it was kind of understood what was going to be facing them as they would go through this selection and be like cattle being told one way or the other. Many of them reached a breaking point, to the point where some of them tried to cling to their families, and they would just be shot and killed right then and there. It was to now bring about tight control, understanding of we're the ones in charge. You don't get to do what you want to do anymore. This is on our pace, our way of operating now, and you have lost complete control. Here are the different camps that are spread throughout Germany and even through Poland. You'll notice that most of the death camps there are going to be in Poland. Chelmno, Treblinka, Sobibor. But probably, like I said, the most famous is going to be Auschwitz-Birkenau. We're going to have an opportunity at the end today to do a flyover of what's left today. It's very, very sobering to see what remains of these awful years at Auschwitz. This sign greeted prisoners as they would come through the gate. What that translates to is work will set you free. The captors are basically telling the captives, by us giving you the opportunity to work, you're going to be able to experience quote unquote freedom. But I think the prisoners knew even from the outset this was not going to be freedom. They would probably never experience freedom again. This would probably be the end. But this kind of mocking message would greet them when they entered to Auschwitz. Probably the most horrific thing that is going to face these individuals, again, is going to start at that selection, then it's going to go to the killing or the actual murder of these prisoners. Early on, they would just line them up on the edge of a ditch and they would kill them. Soldiers would put a bullet into each of them, but they realized this was too costly in two different ways. First of all, the soldiers started experiencing PTSD essentially from killing people at point blank range, especially people that weren't trying to kill them. They started having emotional reactions to that. And so the Germans said, well, we don't want that to happen, so we won't do straight firing squads anymore. The second thing is they realized this was costing them too many bullets. And so they said, we have to come up with something else, a cheaper way of being able to kill these Jews. So they started to now use these awful gas chambers that were going to be at Auschwitz. As people would come in and as they were selected to go toward death, they would have them stripped down. They would put them into the gas chambers, even though on the surface that's not what they were. Here was one to the left. You're going to see them being shower rooms. And as they would go in, trying to get cleaned off, typically it would take 2 to 3 days of journey to get to Auschwitz in cattle cars, like what they would transport cows in. Folks, it was going to be smelly. There was nowhere to use the restroom. Sometimes the conditions were so bad that people actually died on the cattle cars and they weren't able, because they were locked in, to get rid of them. And so there would be some dead bodies in those cattle cars. So I imagine for a lot of these people, a shower seemed like a welcome reprieve, cleaning off all of the filth of that journey to get there. But instead of refreshing water coming out of the shower heads, instead what was going to face them was what was called Zyklon B. Zyklon B, it was a poison, a fast-acting poison that was meant to kill them. Within minutes, typically they would wait probably 10 minutes or so until everybody was dead. And then they would come in and they would get these big carts and they would load bodies onto the carts. And close by, there would be an elevator that would go down to the bottom. And when they would be taken down into these crematoria, they would be put into ovens like what you see on the right, shoving bodies back in there. There were so many people killed at Auschwitz. Those prisoners that were not killed said that it was like there was the chimney that would come up, the ash, it was like it was snowing 24 hours a day. They would constantly pump people through there, and the ash that would come out of those chimneys, they said, was never stopping. You imagine being one of the prisoners and realizing, beginning to understand what was going on. It had to be horrifying, understanding that you too would likely end up in that place. It was awful. Well, we'll talk as we come back next week a little bit more about the liberation, but I want you guys, as we finish today, to be able to see Auschwitz, to see today what it would look like if you were able to get to Poland to see it. So this is what we'll wrap up with. There will be a question at the end of the video, so make sure you stick around for that, and I will see you guys on Friday.